Okay. Hey, this is my second part to the first video, answering a question or responding to the statement. Really emphasized, and what they're saying is we don't know where we come from in Africa because there's still lack of acceptance that we are Americans and that we are created Americans and that we are the neo-Americans here. Um, so it's a lot of denial going around when it comes to our origins. The reality is that Black Americans who are descendants of U.S. chattel slavery is a distinct genetic population from Africans. I'm going to repeat that. We are a distinct genetic population from Africans. This has already been proven scientifically. And I'm gonna review some of these science articles, research articles, published articles that mentions this reality. In other words, we don't originate in Africa. We don't come from, we're not there is no tribal group in Africa that we are genetically what I say exactly alike. We are a distinct group of people. We are a distinct population created here in America. We have our own culture separate from the African. Okay? Let me review this real quick with you guys, making sure I can be able to share my screen. Okay, because screen share, that's what I want to do right here. Let's start here. Let's go. I'm going to read this article to you real quick, and I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. But this narrative of we don't know where we come from, and where in Africa where we come from, when we're not even particularly Africans in the sense that we have our own genetic architecture. And I'm going to tell, and it's going to go into this. Okay, so this is from the BMC part of Springer Nature, Genome Biology, characterizing the admixed African ancestry of African Americans. And then you can see the list of names here. I'm not going to go through that. Genome Biology, 10, article R141, 2009. This is an open access article. You can go ahead and research it for yourself. Okay, so I'm just going to read some of the highlights here. It says here, conclusions. In the conclusions, the results are consistent with historic mating patterns among African Americans that are largely uncorrelated to African ancestral origins, and they cast doubt on the general utility of mitochondrial DNA or Y chromosome markers alone to delineate the full African ancestry of African Americans. Our results also indicate that the genetic architecture of African Americans is distinct from that of Africans. I'm going to reread that again. Our results also indicate that the genetic architecture of African Americans is distinct from that of Africans. Let me repeat it a third time. Our results also indicate that the genetic architecture of African Americans is distinct from that of African Americans, and that the greatest source of potential genetic stratification bias in case control studies of African Americans derives from the proportion of European ancestry. As I said, hybrid. I mentioned in a previous video, we have admixture. And that is what is contributing to us being a distinct group of a genetic population, breeding population, a different breed of people. I just read it right here. So they even distinguish us from continental Africans. They don't even have to say, they just say African. And then they mention African American because that's the so-called popular term that they're using now in this article that was written back in 2009. So, but still, I want you to pay attention to is making us a distinct genetic group from Africans. So when people are saying we're African, they are technically incorrect. You have to understand the difference between having the ancestry versus actually being that. It's not the same. It's two different things. Of course, it's mystery, but at the same time, we are still a genetically distinct group of people because we are admixed. We are not pure Africans. We continue to tell you guys this over and over again. Maybe you need to read some science articles that talks about who we are. Okay, as expected, this is in the discussion, as expected, PCA on our entire sample revealed the greatest genetic differentiation between the U.S. Caucasians and the Africans, with the African Americans intermediate between them, reflecting their recent admixture between ancestors from Europe and Africa. And then they go into this. So they recognize we are we're intermediate between both groups. We are a distinct group genetically from both. Yes, we have European ancestors. Yes, we have African ancestors. But at the end of the day, because of that admixture, it produced a totally new group of people with a distinct genetic architecture, a distinct genetic profile. We are a new people. Now, this doesn't mention, in this particular article, it doesn't mention the Native American. It just mentions the European ancestry here. But there are other articles that also brings up the Native. But we are a distinct group of people. We keep telling people this over and over again. I'll hear foundational Black Americans or read it online saying we're a distinct group of people who are advocating for our lineage and our identity continue to say we are a distinct group of people. Not only did we have an ethnogenesis, but we are literally a distinct group of people genetically. Okay. Due to admixture, as I said before. You cannot unmix something after it's been mixed. So we're a distinct group of people due to our admixture. And again, conclusions. African Americans typically, typically. What does typically mean? That's the norm, right? Typically have African and European genetic ancestry. Okay? As I said, admixture. We are admixed. We are a distinct group. They even make us a distinct group. They say U.S. Caucasians and Africans, and then there's us. They have distinguished us even in this study. They're telling you we are a distinct group of people from the genetic structure, the genetic architecture of who we are. So I want you to look at that. I'm showing it so you can read it. I mentioned the article so you can read it for yourself. We're not the same. Even AI got it correct. Scientific studies. It's just an AI overview. This ain't even getting into the studies. Scientific studies show that on average, African Americans are intermediate between Africans and Europeans genetically, from the genetic level, which is reflected in their physical traits. The African American gene pool was formed by the mixture of people primarily of West African, European, and to a lesser extent, Native American ancestry. And we know we're rediscovering that may not be true. We may have a lot more Native ancestry than given credit to, because there was a paper erasure of our ancestors who were Native, okay, and reclassification. Genetic studies have found that African Americans have an average of about 73% West African ancestry and 24% European ancestry, and with the remainder being mostly Native American. The specific percentages vary widely among individuals. Admixture mapping. Principal component analysis, a method used to find patterns in gene data, consistently shows African Americans plotting on an intermediate line between African and European groups. I want you to understand this. They don't call us Africans. They're calling us something different. They're distinguishing us. They are delineating us from Africans. They're saying genetically, we are not just African. We have our own distinct genetic architecture, our own distinct genetic profile from the African and the European. It keeps on saying intermediate between. We are a admixture. We are the hybrid. We are the crossbreed. We are a totally new, different people. This is the genetic structure and history of Africans and African Americans. Even in this article, it's making a distinction between the both groups. Even though the term African American is used, it's making a distinction. Okay, this was written back in 2010 by Tishkoff and her crew. I want look it up. Science, 2009, April 20th, 324, 5930, pages 1035 to 1044. This is a DOI. Look it up. Pretty soon I got to get off of here. But this is just. Now we'll go down here. So she goes into the mixture in Africa, what's going on there. Fine, let's get to this African American now. That's who we looking for. Genetic ancestry of African Americans and CMA populations. Okay. Okay. So let me make sure my video is still running. Okay, but you see this? I want you to read this. Okay? Because it said notice it's not saying just it's made a distinction. So in contrast to prior studies of African Americans, we infer African American ancestry with the use of genome-wide nuclear markers from a large and diverse set of African populations. So African American populations from Chicago, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and the list goes on, show substantial ancestry from the African Niger Kordofanian AAC, most common in Western Africa, and from the European Middle Eastern AAC. Consistent with prior genetic studies in the history of the slave trade, European and African ancestry levels varied considerably among individuals. And then it also talks about the low levels of detection of ancestry from other groups like the Fulani, the Cushitic, AAC, the Sandawi, East Asian AAC, and Indian AAC from India. Because you had East Indians too that were enslaved, or I would say they were indentured servants, indentured servants during colonial times when the British was still occupying here. Some of them were brought over here too. So we got some of us got that too. So the point is, you see that mixture. And then we observe very low levels of Native American ancestry, although other U.S. regions may reveal Native American ancestry. So they're already talking about us as a distinct group genetically, phenotype and the physical traits. But let's start with the genetics, since a lot of you folks that come at us always want to talk genetics, the genetics, the genetics. Well, the genetics in the community that studies our genetics, they don't just call us African. In fact, that would be scientifically incorrect to call us Africans. They acknowledge all the admixture. They don't say because you're 75% this or 73% this, and we're going to dismiss this admixture with these other groups. That's unscientific. That's not scientifically sound. They don't practice that in the scientific community. They practice acknowledging admixture, whatever level it is, within a genetic population. Okay? So that we have African ancestry, this is also a knowledge are admixed with European ancestry, some East Asian ancestry, some Indian ancestry, and Native American ancestry. And they make a distinction between us and Africans. They're not calling us Africans. They're calling us by the name that has been given to us by the government, African American, but they're still recognizing that, yeah, we're distinct. We're not genetically the same. I want you to read that. We're going to start with this because a lot of people debating us online, telling us we're just lost, displaced Africans, and using the genetic argument. I said they're not even practicing sound science. Not even a credible geneticist would tell a Black American they're African. They will say they have African ancestry, but they will recognize that their genetics is distinct from the African because of our admixture with other groups of people who are not African. Okay? So that's this is part 2. These are I show you 2 research articles in science already showing you that we are presented in science as a distinct group from Africa. Even though we have African ancestry, we are still presented as a distinct genetic group from Africans because of our admixture. We are admixed with other groups of people who are non-African. We are hybrid. We are the cross 2 articles. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can insert notes. Yeah, they're the same thing. This is crazy. Even with AI, I'm just looking at what AI is saying. Even though they say there's significant overlap in the physical care of African Americans and Africans, as the vast majority of African Americans have ancestral ties to West and West Central, the main differences arise from 2 factors: genetic admixture from European and Native American populations and African Americans, and the immense genetic diversity among African populations. So there's even AI understand we are a mix. We are a hybrid. We are the breed. We have admixture. We have key differences from Africans. Look, African Americans, primarily a mix of West Central African and European ancestry with some Native American influence. Okay? That's not saying that on the African side. Okay? Our skin color, African Americans versus Africans, and mixture with European populations has on average resulted in lighter skin tones than those of Africans. However, many African Americans still have very dark skin, and the range of skin tones within the community is broad. Even with your range of skin tones, it's different. The climates that you lived in, primarily from the admixture. Black Americans or African Americans tend to have looser, less tightly coiled hair textures on average due to European genetic admixture. The Europeans introduced a wider range of hair types into the gene pool. As Africans, the main ancestral population for African Americans, tend to have tightly coiled 4C type hair. However, hair texture varies widely across the continent from tightly coiled to wavy. Again, we're not denying differences, but what we're saying, we have certain differences due to our admixture. They're really emphasizing that European component. genetic contribution can result in different facial features for African Americans, such as thinner lips and noses. However, individuals vary greatly, and many retain distinct West African facial features. Many do, many of us don't. Now, there's variety there in Africa too. They're not denying that, but they're talking about there's even much more of a variety, much more of diversity because of that. We're even more diversified in our look and appearance because of the contribution of people who are non-Africans in our ancestry. Now this one. Now this is an old article. This is coming from 1944. Even in 1944, I'm showing you how consistently we were being viewed as a distinct group of people. I show you articles from 2009. I'm showing you articles. I show you the AI overview. Now I'm showing you an article going back to 1944. There's a consistency there of us being viewed as distinct from other groups of people, even the people who we may have descended from, because we are a new type of people. Hybrid, crossbreed. The American Negro must be one of the newest types of mankind. This is coming from Physical Characters of the American by M.F. Ashley Montague. This was written in the Scientific Monthly, volume 59, first edition, 1944, pages 56 to 62. The American Negro must be regarded as one of the newest types of mankind. He represents the effect of a considerable amount of mixture among different African varieties, American Indians and whites of every kind, principally whites of British origin. Now, it's funny, this was written in 1944. You read something similar in the year 2009 when Tishkoff produced her article, and in the other article that I read to you, it's saying the same thing. There is a consistency, a continuum of them saying we are a distinct group of people, not just ethnically and culturally, but also when it comes to from a biological basis. Recent origins genetically. This is based more on morphology. So this was based more on morphology, whereas the more recent articles is based on genetics. But either way, we're seeing a pattern here of our people being recognized as a new distinct people. And it's an American Negro. There's not one, it don't say African. It said the American Negro. And let's be clear, Negro did not always refer or was interchangeable just to a person who came from that continent. Okay? Anyway, so let's go into it. The American Negro must be regarded as one of the newest types of mankind. He represents the effect of a considerable amount of mixture among different African varieties, American Indians and whites of every kind, principally whites of British origin. Out of this mixture has come the unique type or ethnic group represented by the American Negro. The unique type or ethnic group represented by the American Negro. The unique type or ethnic group represented by the American Negro. That is why African American was the worst thing that we could have been called, because it erased this fact that we are a distinct genetic and a distinct physical trait having group. It erases origins as being an admixed type. Out of this mixture has come the unique type or ethnic group represented by the American Negro. The type is even yet in process of formation, and all the evidences indicate that while the American Negro occupies, so far as his physical characters are concerned, a position intermediate between the African Negro on one hand and the white and American Indian on the other. That same word, intermediate, is coming up. We saw that in the AI description. We saw that in the article of the 2009 article of Tishkosh. We saw it in that other article I presented to you. We keep running